I think probably the most asked question, or the thing that most people want to know, is how is the upcoming election going to affect our market? And that's something that, as we started off this year, really in March, our team was starting to work on. And as the coronavirus came through, there was a lot of information, obviously, that we had to address in that. And really, there wasn't a lot of information put out, and hasn't been this summer on the election, because it's been dominated by pandemic type reporting relative to the economy and housing and things like that. But this question of how is the election going to affect our market is something we need to be able to answer and help our consumers, our buyers and sellers, understand as well. So let's take a look at what historically data tells us about an election season. So what I have up here is the percent change in actual monthly new home sales, November versus October, as impacted by an election. So on the right, you see there the blue bar. That's a non-presidential year in October versus November. So typically, we would see about a 10% drop in the month of November as compared to October. So if we sold 100 homes in October, we're going to sell 90 in November. We're going to lose about 10%, okay, 9.8% in this example. In an election year like we are, that drops to about 15%. So if we sold 100 homes in October, we're going to sell about 85 in November. So what happens really at that point is I like to say, consumers kind of put their hands in their pocket with regard to housing, and they say, you know what, I'm going to wait and I'm going to see how this plays out. I'm going to see what happens. And if we look at what Allie Wolf says here, she says the same thing, but it says history suggests that the slowdown is largely concentrated in the month of November, just like we said. But in fact, the year after a presidential election is the best of the 4-year cycle. And that suggests that demand for new housing is not lost because of the election uncertainty. Rather, it gets pushed out to the following year as long as the economy stays on track. So we don't lose those deals. They just get pushed out. And people say, okay, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And then, down the road, we may do something. And why is that? I want to bring this from the BTIG Home Building Report. It says this may indicate that potential home buyers may become more cautious in the face of national election uncertainty, and this caution is temporary and ultimately results in deferred sales, as the economy, jobs, interest rates, and consumer confidence all have far more meaningful roles in the home purchase decision than a presidential election results in the month that follow. So there are things right now in the market that are driving demand that are far more significant than the presidential election. But I'm not saying that that's not going to cause consumers to say, okay, I want to see what's going to happen here. No doubt we're in one of the most highly contentious presidential elections that we've ever seen in this country. And so I do expect people to say, we're going to wait and see what happens. But as the economy improves, as people go back to work, we know we've got low interest rates, and that's driving demand. And as consumers become more confident as the economy moves forward, that will drive demand, not the decision of the election. Now, the interesting thing is if you start to look at the consumer confidence gap between red and blue voters, it's been very high since the 2016 election. So what does this mean? If there's a Republican in the White House, Republican cities, counties, and states have felt more confident. There's been more, starts in housing. There's been more activity. And so what does that mean? We look at two studies right here comparing blue versus red relative to consumer confidence. Again, from the BTIG Home Builders Report, says this: a change in administration might benefit trailing blue county housing dynamics. So the administration changes. You see blue counties go, we feel more confident about the business and the economy coming forward. The reelection of President Trump could continue to propel red county outperformance. So depending on the party, depending on that, is probably where you live and what the predominance of that political makeup is going to drive consumer confidence. So that gives you a little bit of clarity on how the election is impacting the market right now. Because here's the interesting thing. What I know for certain is that over the next 60 days, September, October, and into November, into the election, both sides are going to use data and information to make their case. And one side's going to say it's way worse than you think it is, and one side's going to say it's way better than you ever thought it was. And they're both going to do that to drive perception, because perception is going to influence how people vote. And that's what they're trying to do right now. Our job is to be the knowledge broker, and is to bring that information to everybody that we serve so that they can make a powerful and confident decision for their family.